Welcome to the U-Turn podcast. My friend, this is Ashley Stahl. I'm your host, and you are in the right place if you're ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you're so proud of. And every single week, we want to support you by bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all here on the show to elevate your success in business and also in life so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities you're creating for yourself in your career, whether you're corporate or you're a business owner. And if you are new here, again, my name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international bestselling author of the book U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO and founder of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and I was so inspired to create Wise Whisper and help clients craft their signature talk. We've helped hundreds of clients craft their talk, and we've also helped so many of them land spots on some of the biggest stages in the world, including the TED and TEDx stage. And so I am here on a mission to help every changemaker I know impact millions. Also, before we get into this episode, shout out to our friend Andy B. Mackin, the artist that has gifted us this sick new music for the podcast. Let's get into this week's episode. My friends, on U-Turn, I'm so excited to bring Dan Cohen onto the show today. He's diplomat of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. He holds many patents related to EEG and sleep analysis algorithms and devices, and he's invented the first automated sleep disorder diagnostic equipment used in sleep labs and by sleep professionals. This exact automation helped expand sleep medicine from 300 sleep labs globally to 3,000 over 10 years. He also co-founded CNS, which is a company that launched Breathe Right nasal strips, which he later sold for $566 million, and he spent more than a decade and a half researching and testing technology to improve sleep quality. And so today we're going to talk about how he really rewrote the playbook for launching a consumer product through radio interviews and NFL player partnerships. So without further ado, thank you so much, Dan, for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me.
It's no question that you are a highly innovative person, and I'm excited because one of the things I've had to work through as an entrepreneur is I think when I started businesses at a younger age, I used to think that I would create something and then it would work and then it would make me money and I would be inspired. And I just didn't mentally really land into the reality that being a business owner means you are constantly innovating, that the market's always changing. So I would love to just hear a little bit about who you've been in life to be somebody that has, like, what is it, the qualities, or what is it that you've gone through that you think really made you someone that kept innovating in the way that you have?
I think it starts with a level of confidence in yourself in terms of feeling like you're on the right path. So to me, more of it, even though I'm a neurologist, I mean, it's going to sound strange, but it's go with your gut. What feels right? Mm-hmm. And don't spend so much time thinking about which way you should go. It's better to think about the question you want to ask, or you want answered, I should say, and then let yourself receive that answer. And most people obviously do it the other way. They try to think through the issues and figure it out. But I've found that it's much better to try to understand what answers you're seeking and let them come to you.
It's hard for people to know that they're even on the right path. And it's interesting, we can look at your strips for breathing and think, like, how is that your life purpose? So can you take us, you know what I mean? It's like, I go to CVS every day to pick up things at the drugstore, and it's like, that was somebody's life purpose.
No. Trust me, the story behind Breathe is really a funny one, especially, I think, for your listeners. I remember the day, it was October 11th, 1991. At the time, we were a publicly held capital medical equipment company in the field of sleep medicine. My VP of operations says, hey, I got a friend and he would like to talk to you. So I said, sure. The guy came in, it was October 11th, 1991, and we're sitting at a conference table, and you could tell he's pretty uncomfortable. He doesn't bring out his product. And his name's Bruce. And we were talking for a little bit, and he told me that he made this invention. And I said, do you think I could see it? And he goes into his briefcase and he takes it out, and he doesn't hand it to me. He puts it on his side of the table. And so I say, Bruce, you think I could touch it? And he hands it to me, and it's literally a Curad Band-Aid with a piece of plastic glued on top of it. But I immediately looked at that, and what I saw instead was what became the Breathe Right nasal strip. But I realized that if I took that to my board of directors and said, I want to license this product, they would say, you're nuts. We're a capital medical equipment company. We're publicly held, and you want to license a nose Band-Aid. And so what I did was, I knew it was absolutely the right thing to do. So I did it without clearing it with them, gave the guy a stock option, which you really can't do as a public company without getting board approval. And I knew they would be really angry with me. But I was in a position in the company where they couldn't afford to fire me. I figured, I'm going to just do this. And again, it was one of those things where you go, I know this is the right step for us to take. We were a small publicly held company at that time. We were only doing $8 million in business. You got to remember, we're talking 1991, okay, where you could be a really small cap company and be public. And so they couldn't fire me, but they said, hey, look, you think this is such a good product and you've already trying to hire somebody from big pharma to run this. We don't agree with you. So you do it, hire somebody to replace yourself in the sleep business. So I said, fine. And after working on the product, I had to work through all the difficulties of getting it into distribution, doing all these things, and an innovative approach. During the way, after I was getting it into distribution, Procter & Gamble wanted to buy it from us. They thought it was a great idea. And they had me come there and present to their new business development group, which filled an auditorium. The head of new business development got on stage with me after I presented the product and our concepts. He said, look, you're a publicly held company. I know you have $10 million in the bank. We're the world's expert at consumer packaged goods, and this is pre-internet. You can't launch it for less than 50 million. Let us take it over. Everybody will do well. And I said, no, I got an idea. The idea was off the wall, but I figured we got to give it a try. And it turns out that it worked, and we got football players to wear it at no cost. And overnight, we had a $60 million business.
Wow. It's interesting because what you're really sharing is about how you think. You saw something, somebody showed you something, and you saw something better. And I met a woman recently, and she calls herself an inventor, and I really love that. I've never actually met a woman that I'm at a party, and I say, oh, what do you do? And she says, I'm an inventor. I love that she said that. And we got into a conversation about how to be an inventor. And she said, inventors just see something and they ask themselves how it could be better. And the thing that makes it better is the invention. And I would love to just hear a little bit about how you think creatively or how you innovate. How do you keep yourself fresh with your creativity?
A lot of it, in my opinion, is having greater receptivity. In other words, I've been a student of the mind my entire life. Ever since I was 15. And I look at the mind as being sort of two halves. There's the part of the mind that comes from the brain, which is really your ego. It's your attitudes, beliefs, it's your knowledge built into the circuitry of the brain, including your coping strategies, defense mechanisms, etc. So there's the good and the bad of it. But that's the ego. Then there's what I would call the higher mind. And some people would call that soul or spirit. But the bottom line is that aspect of your mind is the creative part of you. And it's allowing yourself to be receptive to that. That's what I allow my ego mind to ask questions to that mind, and then it tells me. It's a difference between thinking and knowing. You think with your ego, but that other part of you is your knowing self. And that's always fresh. You just have to access it or allow it to come in.
I love to hear that. And I think a lot of people have a reflex of saying why something won't work versus being receptive. Is that something you had to develop, or do you think you're just a naturally receptive person?
I think I was receptive to a degree. However, like with our current technology, it really enhances a meditative state, for instance. And I've been working on this kind of thing for the past 25 years. And what this does is it greatly enhances one's feeling nature. And when you think about it, knowing is a felt sense. It's not about thinking, it's knowing. And it's your body ends up knowing, but it's that receptivity, allowing the body to relax and be in that state, which allows you to receive. And I know that that aspect of my sense of being has grown dramatically with my ability to learn how to turn off my brain, like during meditation. So I can get all sorts of answers in that state.
Okay, I want to ask you about what everybody has to ask you about, which is all that you've learned about sleep. Is there 1, 2, or 3 things you could just share for everybody listening that maybe isn't front of mind for them to improve their sleep?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sleep is not a mystery anymore. We really know a lot about sleep. I think most people know that there are different stages of sleep. And by far and away, in the sleep community, in the scientific community, it's absolutely known and unequivocal that deep sleep, which is also known as delta sleep because it produces delta brainwaves, or slow wave sleep because these are the slowest of the brainwaves, that stage of sleep is by far and away the most important because that allows for cell recovery, cell repair, basically cell generation, even DNA repair, clears out plaque from the nervous system. It regulates the immune system, so it boosts that. It also regulates the endocrine system. 70 to 80% of your growth hormone is secreted in delta sleep. So this is the most important. And here's the unfortunate part. We start losing that starting at, let's say, 25 years of age. By the time you're in your mid to late 40s, you've already lost 60 to 70% of your delta sleep. By the time you're 80, you probably don't have any.
Wow.
And the loss of delta sleep inversely correlates with the increase in chronic disease. This is the health promoting stage of sleep. And that is one of the reasons why we've developed what we've developed to restore that, because it is restorable. It's also one of the reasons why people should exercise regularly, because that helps promote deeper sleep at night with the circuitry you have. Now remember, we lose delta sleep because we lose over time some of the neural circuitry that allows for delta sleep.
And you said delta sleep is the same as deep sleep, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and people talk a lot about REM. What are some thoughts you have about REM? I understand what you said about the immune system and cleaning out the body with the deeper sleep. What's your thought on REM and if people should be striving for that? And is there anything we could do to improve our deep sleep or our REM?
The deep sleep, like I said, exercise, and that unfortunately that doesn't bring back the circuitry. We've developed technology at Soltech Health that does, but right now that's one of a kind. In terms of REM sleep is dream sleep, okay? And I think the best way to really look at REM sleep in terms of its functionality, other than helpful in memory, is that it's your personal therapist. So based on what you experience during the day, your REM sleep will be active working on those issues. And you should, to the extent that you remember your dreams, you should try to analyze them and say, what happened yesterday? Why did I dream about this? What can it tell me? And it's usually very symbolic. So you have to look at it not in a literal sense.
I know that there's a lot around just anxiety that prevents sleep. Like, we live in a world that is very stressful. People have cognitive overload, decision fatigue, all these things. They go to bed with it. It's interesting. I once had a therapist and she said, what happens when your head, because I had a hard time sleeping for a while. She said, tell me what happens when your head hits the pillow. And I said, then I start unpacking my day. And she goes, what a horrible place to do that. When it comes to breathing, it's interesting. Like, anxiety makes it hard to breathe, right? There's so many different things going on. But I think people don't talk enough about being a mouth breather, a nose breather. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Nasal breathing is beneficial. But when you talk about anxiety, let's talk about that for a second, because that's super important. Most people don't realize that chronic stress either causes or worsens 75 to 90% of all medical problems. It's a staggering number. I used to ask my professors in medical school if that fact is true, which, by the way, it is. It's been shown in numerous studies. why aren't we treating that as the primary pathology? We get rid of half the illnesses. And they had good answers. They basically said, hey, look, that's caused by this aspect of the autonomic nervous system that resides deep in the brain at the floor of the skull. So it's part of the brain stem. It evolved 500 million years ago, and the neuroreceptors on that part of the brain, as the brain evolved, those same neuroreceptors ended up in a lot of other places in the brain. So treating it pharmacologically produces too many side effects. So you're left with behavioral techniques. And getting back to your question, one of those is breathing exercises. And what they'll frequently teach you is breathe through your nose, but expand your abdomen so you get good abdominal breathing, and then release that air slowly. And what that is trying to simulate is the parasympathetic division of your autonomic nervous system, which relaxes you. So when you look at the autonomic nervous system, think of it as a seesaw. There's two major divisions: sympathetic, which is known for fight or flight, and parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. You want to be living in the rest and digest mode. That doesn't mean you're eating all the time or you're sleeping all the time, but it does mean you're calm and you're not stressed and you're not experiencing fight or flight, all right? And so that's pivotal. Regular breathing can help, but again, I get back to the difference between exercises like that versus learning how to meditate or doing things that are meditative in nature, because that counters stress better than anything. And a recent study actually just showed, it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, and they studied a meditation versus the most popular anti-anxiety drug, and meditation won out. It was more effective.
Is there a certain type of meditation that you lean on? Or for somebody getting started who's never meditated before, what would be your wisdom around it or your approach that you would want people to know?
No, there's definitely, in my opinion, no one type better than another. It's really allowing yourself to be comfortable. It's more about developing a state of mind where you're quiet and you allow the thoughts to dissipate. And I've found that the easiest way to do that, focus on how your body feels. The more you focus on your feeling nature, the less you're thinking. Scan your body and see, how do my feet feel? Ultimately, you want to get to a point where you can feel your whole body at the same time. If you just focus on the palms of your hands and the palmar aspect of your fingers, and start to try to feel this very, very slight tingling or vibration. And ultimately, when you can get to the point where you can reproduce that feeling throughout your entire body, you are in a deep meditative state. So you just want to start with your hands. I tell people start with their hands and then move to the feet very quickly, and then try to extend that up the legs, throughout the arms, ultimately the torso. And when you can get to that state, that's it. And so it's focus on that. Now, there's one other tip I think is really important, and that is you want to set an intention. In other words, why are you meditating? Because people meditate for a lot of different reasons. Some people meditate simply because they want to reduce their stress. Some people meditate for spiritual purposes. They want to be in touch with a higher source. This might surprise you, but the Pew Research Center did a study. They're a nonprofit organization, and the media trusts them more than any other organization. They have the highest ratings for being truthful and unbiased. They did a survey on over 11,000 U.S. adults, asking in an unbiased way, do you believe that you have, or that people have, a soul or spirit? And 83% said yes. So a lot of people that meditate to get more in touch with that aspect of themselves. And that's what I was referring to about higher mind. That's the part of you that has the answers. And to get there, you do it through your feeling nature, not through thought. I like to develop a simple mantra, just a little phrase that you repeat that keeps you on track in your meditation session. For instance, if you want to start out with feeling, it's feel my feet, feel my hands, feel my body. Something simple like that, just to get started.
just some mindfulness. And have you always leaned towards these tools for your mental well-being, or was there an era where you weren't in these tools and that's what brought you here?
I started to meditate when I was an adolescent, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. And when I went to college, I visited this ashram, and they had me sit in this position, and it was worthless. I couldn't do it. I got a skinny butt, and all it did was make my butt hurt. So that was worthless. And I tried throughout a number of years, and I think I started to become successful in my 30s and 40s. And I continued to work on that, and you can get very good at it. Now, I've also incorporated technology into my practice, which really accelerated my ability to meditate deeply. And that has helped me because I can maintain that state throughout the day.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you start your day at a certain threshold of capability, and when you meditate, you give yourself more capacity and space to take in the day, which is such a beautiful thing. Okay, you built the Breathe Right strips very successfully, or any consumer product. You have a playbook around launching them through radio interviews, sports partnerships. Can you take us a little bit into that external game? I know we've just talked about the internal game of meditating, but externally, what were some of those things you did? Because I know a lot of people are probably listening right now. They want to launch a product and they don't know where to begin.
Yeah, it's a different world today than it was when I launched that, because that was pre-internet. And you had to find, if you didn't have $50 million to launch a product, you had to be creative, somehow use media. And I used radio interviews. I had to do 400 radio interviews just to get the thing into early distribution until we can get one of the major chains to pick it up. And that was Walgreens. And I had to do that through a form of blackmail. I went and visited them, and they wouldn't take the product, of course, because, the head of Cough Cold said, "How much business are you going to do in the first year?" And I shot back 23 million. And he says, "Oh, you're full of shit." I said, "Probably." And so I went to the regional managers in certain districts, and I said, "Hey, look, I got this product. Al Tui, the head of Cough Cold, wouldn't take it. Is there anything you can do?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm in control of the counter space. I can put it on the counter." So I got a number of them to do it. And finally, Al Tui calls me up and he says, "Get in here. You're a pain in my ass. I have to process all these orders by hand. I'll take your product just so I can get rid of you." So you have to do things that are a little sort of outside the normal bounds. All right. Again, be creative, be aggressive, and try to figure out, how do I beat the system? These days, a lot of people run and they figure, I'm just going to get on social media and do this. They go on podcasts like this. And there's nothing wrong with that approach. I think it's a good start. But ultimately, you have to think strategically about leverage. If you're a small company and you don't have the resources, then it's, what is the best way to leverage? Maybe you partner with a slightly bigger company. It's finding an angle that's going to work. The other route that I think a lot of entrepreneurs take is they don't have any means of raising capital, which is difficult these days. And so they go to venture capitalists. And pretty soon, the VCs own your business. It's really difficult. And so my recommendation is start small, don't build a big staff, and sort of learn your business from the bottom up. See how you can leverage it, build that plan. And as you're building that plan, it's going to sound crazy. As part of the early plan building, say, how am I going to exit this business? What is the eventual outcome? And be realistic with yourself. A lot of these entrepreneurs will look at it and say, I'm going to build this massive company and it's going to be global and so on and so forth. I got to tell you, that's like a 1 in a million shot. The odds of that occurring. So be realistic and say, is there a better way? And even if you did have a product that you wanted to get out to millions of people, are you the best person to do it? Wouldn't it be better to maybe build your company up to a certain point and then sell it to a multinational company that already has a global footprint? Or another thing that I think most entrepreneurs miss out on, and this is really unfortunate, is they don't develop an intellectual property strategy. They don't realize if they're really innovating and they've made something new, you've got to think patents, and you got to think about patents not just as I need a patent so I have freedom to operate, that I'm not infringing on somebody else's intellectual property, but can a patent be built around this invention that excludes others from doing it? In our current business, we've invested $3 million so far in developing a patent portfolio, which is a lot of money given the fact that in this business, we've only raised about 16 million, and 3 of it's gone to the development of intellectual property. And that's what a bigger company is going to buy depending on your level of development. And that can be worth a lot of money. And there will be companies that will pay a lot of money if you have really good intellectual property. It helps if you've also proven you've created a product and you've proven that you can sell it, obviously. And that's a big plus. But IP is a big part of it.
Okay. And I think a lot of people, when they're tuning into patents, they might feel like that's a mystery for them. How does somebody, I'm sure there's a lot of innovative people listening, but they don't know how to think in terms of, I'm going to file a patent for that. What advice or insight would you give to somebody that should actually be starting to think about patents? Like, what are the kinds of things that you would want to patent? Can you just get our minds moving in that direction so that maybe some everyday humans listening right now realize, oh, shoot, I need to file a patent?
Yeah, if you've developed something that's truly novel, go on to Amazon and see if you can find it there or something like it. And if it's there, then it doesn't necessarily pay to file a patent. But like Bruce, who was the real inventor, the nasal strip, he realized that what he had was novel. So he went to a patent attorney, and the patent attorney agreed. And again, you can always go solicit advice from a patent attorney and say, hey, look, I invented this thing. What's it going to cost for me to hire you to figure out whether or not this is novel or there are novel elements to it and it should be patented? So that might be the first step. Remember, patent attorneys are the most expensive attorney, so it's going to cost you some money to do it. But if you really have something that's novel, that's a step you don't want to miss.
I think some people don't even know what it means to have something novel. And I think that's something I'm trying to reach for with you is like, how can somebody realize something is novel? Can you give some examples of how maybe one idea is not novel, but this is an idea that should be patented? Can you give us that nuance?
I mean, a lot of people invent things, for instance, because they have their own personal need. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so they're already familiar with all of the ways in which people have tried to solve this problem. Mm. And if you try everything on the market, for instance, and it doesn't work, and you start thinking about it and say, if I only did this, I mean, I see a lot of inventors, and most of their inventions are due to personal need. And what happens then is, if they do come up with something and it actually works and they haven't found a solution like that on the market, it's novel. Otherwise, the only other major way that inventors invent something that's novel is if they have some level of expertise in an area. Okay, so these people are experts and they go, I see an advantage if we did it this way. And so they'll change an existing product and they'll add a feature to it that is new and different. And they know that because they're experts in that field already. And then they'll say, I know this is novel, and so I'm going to file a patent.
I remember seeing a pitch fest in Florida where different entrepreneurs pitched investors in the audience for funding. And I remember this one woman, she got up there and she talked about like press-on nails that she created and how she was getting a bunch of orders, but then she realized that she has this iPhone software in order to size the nails for the person. So you would have your iPhone hover over your nails to assess what size they would send you. And that software became what they actually made their money off of. And so it was interesting. It was almost like she invented press-on nails, but then in the journey, she ended up really patenting her software to measure your hand.
Exactly. But that's a perfect example of somebody who was knowledgeable about that area, and she had to solve a problem. And in solving that problem, she created an invention.
This has been so nice to talk to you about all this. I guess the biggest question I have is, what am I not asking you that you would want to leave with everybody around innovation, around business, or well-being? Like, what is a question or answer that you would want to share before we go?
I think one thing that people miss out on is learning how to be a good listener. In other words, when you listen to people, think about, what are they telling me? Why are they telling me something? What aren't they telling me that I should know? So if you learn to be a really good listener and take it in and interrupt when you need clarification, but otherwise spend more time listening, it helps everybody learn so much more.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Is there somewhere that everybody can follow you and keep learning from you?
I have a LinkedIn page, but otherwise I don't really put anything out there other than...
I love that for you.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm off meditating, Ashley. We're good. Thank you again for coming on to the show.
No, my pleasure. Thanks again.
Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show because, as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we are getting clients booked for the TEDx stage.
Martial Arts Productions.
So incredible.
Tryna do tonight, swear you don't even try, and you still look stupid fine. Wish I can try and make you mine, but I don't think you like us. You're the puzzle that I'm trying to solve. Always think you know it all, been thinking about you up against that wall. It's too late, I fell in free fall. Holding ground on I don't think I should try. I guess it's time to give up.